Okay, it's fine, no? I can use this one also. I have posted some lecture videos in the group. You must have gone through those lecture videos, right? Hmm? It is not possible to go through each and every lecture, PPT lecture in one day. So you might have seen that post, right? You might have seen that post. So accompanying some of the PPT lectures. So, but PPT lectures are not enough. So, but that will definitely give you some information, some idea about the course. So, help you to understand and comprehend the course. But at the same time, yeah, this offline lectures, which I have been giving, I have been taking, will be quite helpful, and this will be also complementary and supplementary to the PPT lectures which are being shared. So, in the last class, remember we have discussed about information literacy, right? We discussed about interactivity, and I also told you that I will give you one exercise on interactivity, and is which will be quite useful, and which has been uh, finished by most of the students, which has been done with by most of the students of this department. And it will give you an idea about the research interface of the new media, the kind of research you will be conducting using the new media. Right, so that I will come to it. So after this class, uh, apart from this, we have discussed about some of the types of you see the content, uh, and how those content are different from the news and information. And it is important to understand the relevance of informations, the quality of information uh, in order to be a ethical, you see, newsroom person, okay, or media person. And hence, when you talk about the information literacy, it is one kind of literacy which I have already told you. It's very, very important for a media student. Okay, so I'll continue with this information literacy. And while discussing about the information literacy, I will discuss about, I'll tell you how digital media technology has helped to change the whole newsroom setup and disrupt the whole newsroom environment. And it has also created some of the challenges related to our this functional literacy. So let me tell you that when you talk about this information literacy, we used to have a very it's a simple understanding of what information literacy is all about. So we simply understand that it is a capacity, or you say it's a skill set which will help you to understand the information, analyze information, access information, right, and to present information. And that's how simply we can understand what information literacy is. So information literacy is all about accessing, analyzing, and interpreting and presenting the information. Now, presenting the informations, it is very easy nowadays to present the informations without even understanding the veracity of the fact, without even understanding whether that information is right and wrong, right? So, it is important to understand different types of information. What kind of information is that? And that is also quite important. If you actually look at the type of messages, type of codes and conventions which are being used in the messages, as well as you see this is called the technique which are being used in the messages, how you interpret the messages. So these are some of the factors which will actually help you to understand an information. So you see that it is a literacy construct at the same time, as I have told you, right? And it will deal with basically the content part. Information literacy will deal with the content part, right? So how will you evaluate the content? So whether content is contextual or not. Context based study is very, very important. So contextuality of this information is very important. So when you talk about the contextuality of information, I'll say that most of the time you won't get to find in such a information abundance environment, you won't get to find whether this information is put in the right context or not. Last time I have provided you one, I've given you one example also, like a photograph which is taken during this Vietnam War was again recirculated after the earthquake, Nepal earthquake. So that has generated a kind of false context. So we have different types of information like false context based information, false connection based information. We used to use this parody, satire, that is like no, satire and satirical content or parody. These are also kind of information. We also have imposter content, that is also kind of information. So you can have types of content which are available in order to investigate and to study to find out the veracity of the information and the type of information, the form and content of information, how it is being structured, how it is being sequenced, how it is being communicated. So it's very very important. So when you talk about you see this connection of this information, there is no connection of the caption which is used, photograph is used, and the text and visuals. So you actually see that that will lead to a kind of false connection. Okay, then we see that parody and satirical content and satire, you often see that that is not intended to harm anyone, right? But at the same time, you see this parody and satirical content will also uh, um, made to these are made to fool anyone. So you see that there is also a difference between information and disinformation. In the last class, I have already told you the sole difference between information and disinformation. Information is made to empower you, and disinformation is made to disempower you. So disinformation will not lead to enlightenment, or you see, not lead to empower yourself. So it will not educate you. It will not make you aware of anything, any context. But when you say information, it will make you aware of the surroundings, aware of this event. So in order to have that awareness, you need to learn the context, the connections, the originality of this informations, and who has constructed that message, how that message has been constructed, what is being eliminated from the message, the kind of code and conventions which are used in that message is very very important. Okay, the value system and belief system which are there present in the message, so is very very important. So information literacy involves, again, in last class I have told you, and I have been repeating the same thing, that it involves first a message, the kind of message, and within message dimensions you have certain criteria to evaluate, and then it will involve the format. Within format also you have certain criteria to look into. So in format, what we will look into, then audience which are being targeted to that information is very very important. You need to study the audience, the type of audience who creates that kind of niche, right? That targeted audience, it's very very important. At the same time, what is important is uh, the you see, the intention which is there in the message. Perhaps this is also combined with the message factor. Now you see, in message, what will you look into? In message, you will actually look into, you will try to first read the message, you will interpret the message, and how you will interpret the message is very very important. So here you will interpret some of the concept. Okay, so you tend to interpret a message on the basis of a kind of plot, that characters, right? Contrast and compare, fact and opinion, right? As well as cause and effect, right? And also you see this kind of actors involved, the purpose involved, the intention involved, the theme, the mood which have been reflected in the message, right? So how will you evaluate one particular message? Message is all about story. Okay, you are trying to analyze one particular story. Suppose a news piece, it also involves a story, right? So how will you interpret that story is very very important. The kind of characters which are involved in that message is very very important. So plot, that setting is very very important. Understanding the setting, understanding the plot is very important. Third is the mood of that message, whether it will enlighten you, it will make you pessimistic, it will make you sadist, it will make you laugh, it will make you like make you think positive, and it will make you aware. So that mood is very very important, okay, in that message. And then it is also quite important to evaluate the message on the basis of the contrast and compare between the characters, between the role, between the context which is being used in the message, as well as you compare that story with similar kind of content is very very important. This is a part of information literacy, and this will come under the message dimension. As I have told you, first you have information literacy. Within that information literacy, what you were supposed to analyze, you were supposed to analyze the message factor, then the format factor, that audience, who is sending. So these are the four aspects to which you will give importance to. First is the sender. Who is sending is very very important. Second is the message or the content, and third is the format which you will try to evaluate, and fourth is the audience. That is the fourth aspect of or element of any information. Okay, so it is important to make yourself literate to access that information, to analyze and to evaluate, and then to even that create, or here we can also say create, distribute. So creation and distribution are different in different situation. We used to have different definition of creation and distribution, but here in information we see that we create, at the same time we distribute the information, same information. And how we usually do that, you'll see that first sender's intention is very very important everywhere. If you go to a newsroom nowadays, we see that digital technology has propelling the meat making nowadays. It is said that it is propelling the meat making. Now what is meat? Meat is a kind of what is meat? Unverified fact, right? It is unverified fact and a fiction and a kind of belief systems which doesn't have any kind of veracity, and most of the time this is also orally transmitted, right? So a newspaper has a role in the myth making, and with this advent of this emerging technologies, emerging digital technologies, news media has been making meat and meat after meat. Okay, so that is another shift that you get to see when you move to digital newsroom, digital outlet. Okay, so it is important for you to understand the information literacy. Why? To establish yourself as a moral and ethical digital journalist. To be a moral and ethical digital journalist, it is very important for you to understand the importance of information literacy. Okay, because we also see that at digital environment that the whole news making process has been changed, right? So we have that what that gatekeeper's role in last class also I have told you that gatekeeper's role have been entirely changed, right? Earlier, we have gatekeepers who used to filter the content for the audience, and they, the news of the day, decide the news of the day. So those gatekeepers will decide the news of the day. They will basically decide what to go and decide the content which will fix in the news hole for the day, and set the agenda of the day. Right, so that was the role of the gatekeepers. And I have also told you that gatekeepers theory was uh, first propounded by this Kurt Lewin, Kurtlewin. So, had I get the whiteboard here, I could have written down. So that is Kutluin actually relate gatekeepers to wives. I have told you, wives and housewives especially, role of housewife in a household in order to distribute the food in a platter, or you see that in order to prepare the food and to design it for the other members of the household. So definitely she is the one who will decide what food will go to the table, right? So the kind of food, it is adulterated or not adulterated, good for health, not good for health, so she is the one who will take the decision. And that's what good living has uh, uh, related to. So now you see that that relation, not necessarily we can also um, uh, contextualize or put in every kind of situation, but definitely he said that like gatekeepers in the newsroom are also like those housewives at the same time who will decide the news of the day. But you see that when you talk about those role of the gatekeepers, we get to see a kind of concentric circle in the newsroom, which is very very important to understand. Concentric circle. In that particular circle, you see concentric circle like that way. So if I simply like that way, you have that concentric circle, concentration, like that way. Concentric circle, the very first, the innermost circle is actually called the individual level of gatekeeping. Individual level of gatekeeping, the circle, 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 like that way. You see the concentration within that, because I do not have that marker and a whiteboard to even show you. So the innermost circle is the individual circle. Okay, that individual level of, you say, filtration. And then you also have a kind of media routine level of filtration, which is important. Okay, media routine level of filtration, and then organizational level of filtration, and at last you have that ideological level of filtration. So you see, there are also stages of filtration. Is the way the content are being filtered. So that is how filtrations usually carried out. So first, that the very first one is that individual level of filter. So that filter we use when journalists' own biases usually like tend to come upon the in determining the news agenda. So it can be related to information literacy also. Now, let me tell you, we are trying to club both this concept together. If you discuss about information literacy, it is something which is this concept is it is important for everyone, apart not only for journalists but also for audience reader. So every literate individual is supposed to be called literate because of information literacy. So it is a very important component of literacy. So you see that literacy, it is not a single construct, I have already told you. So it is a multiple construct, and it involves that content, skill, physical artifact, and social support. And you cannot even establish literacy in bipolar gradation, like yes, no, yes, he can read, he can't read, he can write, he can't write. No, this is not literacy. Okay, literacy is a multiple construct, right? So here, when you talk about the literacy, I'm not talking about the literacy of the journalist, literacy of a media person, literacy of audience as well, literacy of users, literacy of readers is very very important. But when you talk about the newsroom, gatekeepers are basically, this is a theory which is also designed for understanding of the newsroom. But again, it is all about information literacy. So the most relevant information is used to be prioritized for the day, filter out and prioritize for the day. Okay, and it is also related to agenda setting, as somehow gatekeeping and agenda setting are connected, because through gatekeepers and editors are the gatekeepers. They set the agenda of the day. They prioritize the symbols, they prioritize the content, they prioritize the message of the day. So the way they prioritize the symbol, content, message of the day, they set the agenda. So there are innumerable number of agendas. You might also say taxation related. You see this community development, health, sanitations, um, um, that inflations. So what will prioritize? Okay, so not necessarily that media priority will be the social priority, or that will be the priority of the politicians. Okay, and everybody has exercised different way of literacy, and not necessarily a politician will be informationally literate. So not literate, like information literacy may not be one kind of construct which may not be relevant to a politician, not at all. And even if it is relevant, they will definitely try to stay away from that information literacy construct. Okay, it is important for us. It is important to behave critically, behave ethically, behave morally. It's very, very important because you see, nowadays media person used to tend to get lot of you see, I'll say criticism. Lot of criticism tend to get lot of criticism just because they are not informationally literate. They do not have that literacy, information literacy, and hence they tend to invite lot of criticism nowadays. You said it's a bogus media. So like it's a fabricated media. We tend to name everyone. Society not we society tend to name each and every outlet as a bogus one. It's a rumor monger. Why? Now, there is also very interesting concept of rumor which is associated with information literacy. First, let me finish the construct of the gatekeepers, and then how it is related to information. I'll come to it, and then we will move to that how uh, rumors also usually like disseminated and sent. Now you see that you understood the concept of gatekeepers. Now you see gatekeepers basically these are the editors who tend to perform their role in the newsroom in order to filter the content and decide the agenda of the day. And you see, most of the time, mass media is basically conceptualized. Last time also, I have told you, conceptualized around a group of organized people who are concentrated. Let me, it is conceptualized in a way that a group of people are concentrated uh, around a tool through which they can disseminate homogeneous point of view to a large number of audience. See that definition. A group of people is organized around a tool to disseminate the homogeneous point of view and that to a large number of audience. So see the construct, the definition. Mass media will send a homogeneous message, similar, uniform message to a large group of population through that tool. So these people are basically organized around this particular tool to even send that message. And message, there is a homogeneity of content instead of diversity of content. Homogeneity, similarity, uniformity, which will be reflected, which will be sent to the uh, large group of population or masses, right? So that is the mass media, right? So in that way, these editors also determine the homogeneity of content, let me tell you. So in a way we get to see that homogeneity reflected in the agenda of every news house, that media house. Okay, that same kind of homogeneity we get to see in newspaper. Same kind of news have been circulating, similar headline has been seen in the newspaper, isn't it? So you get to see similar kind of headlines, similar kind of like content in the newspaper circulated, and that decides the agenda of the day. So it is because of the technical and commercial characteristics of the mass media. So the very technical and commercial characteristics will determine the message construct, the content. Okay, so technical in the sense, when you talk about the technical construct of mass media, you also tend to see that uh, mass media has that limitation of time, right? Praise itself has the limitation of praise, sorry, space. So this becomes a matter of omitting the content, some of the like omissions, or you see um, uh, discrimination or elimination of some of the content at times, and that happens at individual level, at media routine level, and at organizational as well as ideological level. Okay, so when we talk about the gatekeepers, we understand the role of the gatekeepers. We need to reflect upon our understanding about the concentric circle first. In that concentric circle, in the individual level, so it will determine the story format, story angle, information, kind of information, what will be there. So if I tell you to write a story, so definitely you will first ask me about the format of the story. There's advocacy related story, or it's an objective news piece, it's a hard news, soft news, feature, or where it is going to be published. It's a digital platform, or it is to be broadcast, or it is to be printed, right? So you will definitely try to understand the format of the story, right? And the story features, what kind of story, whether it is an opinion piece, or it's a simply it's a feature, or it's a interpretative story, or it's simply a fact based, it's a hard news, and the report of the day. So you will try to identify, so that will decide at the individual level of production. Secondly, we will discuss about the information, what is to be included and what is not to be included, and there we will include a kind of selection. Let me tell you that information literacy is not at all easy. Many people at even higher level, they become like, they engage in one particular professions, they become retired, still they are not information literate. Hmm. The way they used to remark, used to comment on, so you get to understand that they are actually not information literate. So in the very first stage, you see that is called initiation phase. In order to make yourself literate, you need to search information, right? So there is a way to search information. As I have already told you, that information literacy will involve what? Uh, mm, Identifying the appropriate search tool. First, making an appropriate search query, which is very, very important. What you actually want to search, it is also related to that new media features. New media is an information search tool. So, making an appropriate search query is important. Conceptual search, relate two words, and how will you relate two words is very, very important. Conceptual search is very, very important. And then you also make an appropriate search tool through which you will seek for that information, which will give you that information. Search tool here in digital media environment, it's very, very important. And offline, you will actually go for, outside this digital media environment, you will actually go for the appropriate sources, which is legitimized sources, which is legitimized enough, which is also diversified enough, not monopolized by anyone, and which has established a certain level of trust with the audience, which will help you to get this information, right? That is outside the digital media environment. And in digital media environment, as we tend to do everything with that search tool, we will try to find appropriate search query as well as search tool. So which search engine will give you the better search, advanced search, how to make an advanced search is very, very important. And once you get this return and the hit and this likely search items, now it is very, very important to evaluate your searches. So evaluate those, like, searchable content, so or whatever is delivered in your plate. So you are supposed to find out, filter, so what is relevant, what is not relevant. So that is called the selection of information, that is there everywhere in newsroom also. So based on the relevance of the agenda which is already there in the society, and that agenda is also somewhat set by media as well as politicians. And when you actually discuss the agenda setting theory, that is not independent of the societal interpretation, as well as, like, independent of society as well as politicians. Okay, it is connected to society and politician. When it is connected to politician, then policy level of agenda is usually set, and it is connected to society because every time society also inspire media to set certain agenda, right? So hence, when you talk about the information literacy, again, it is very, very important to select this information, right? And select the information and to ask the relevant questions. Okay, it's very, very important to ask a relevant question in order to select this information. So very important to know how to set a question. So we were trained in Jamia Millia Islamia. I passed out from AZ camps years. We were trained how to make questions, how to construct question. Every time we went on like making questions and questions. So there were questions, lot of questions come up. So one situation, how many questions can come up? Okay, so it's important to understand the value of questions and interrogations. So how will you question any event, any factor, fictions, any kind of contact situation? It's important for you as a journalist, as a media person. Okay, So that how to create a search query, search tools, select information, and how to make a questions or interrogate. So it's important, right? And then you once you assess the information. Assessing is also very very important. You actually collect, okay, and then you present information, then you again you assess, make yourself aware. So then also you have something, you usually use your own judgment to evaluate the form and content of the message. So you understand the quality of the message in the assess part, and you relate it to your previous experience. So your past experience will definitely help you to assess the message. Okay, so that we tend not to use our past experience, but it is very very important to use your past experience in assessing, in evaluating, in also making a judgment of any kind of information. Okay, so when you talk about information literacy in the message factor itself, you have certain parameters, right? So first, the code convention, value system of the message. You need to understand the value system of the message. Second, you need to understand the code and convention of the message, right? And the technique which are used in the message. So when you talk about the value system, so you try to identify the value system which is being used in the message. So basically, this is the ideology of that news house. So proprietor's role is also very very important. How proprietors also impress upon the content, influence the directionality of the content is very very important at times. So here we actually identify the these this um, proprietors biasness, subjectivity, and influence of the message. Okay, and also you will try to identify the value system, any kind of ideology it is used really there. It is said that this media house is that party affiliated, or that media house is this party affiliated, we said, no? So that is basically this ideology of one particular media house. Accordingly, they also promote the content, and that kind of ideological subjectivity and biases get to be seen in the content selection and presentation of any media house. And then you also have you see that you will see that whose lifestyle is being presented, so whose group is being presented. It's very very important. Whose lifestyle of youth is different from the lifestyle of household or housewife, or lifestyle of oldies will be different from lifestyle of the youth and this young, right? And officers will be different from those which are unoccupied. So, whose lifestyle is being represented in um, um, most of the stories of one particular newspaper, one particular digital platform where stories are there. So, it's very, very important. Basically, even if there is a directionality of stories which can be understood through the very nomenclature of that media house, and by reading their about us or reading their goal mission, it can be understood. But if you read the stories, not necessarily the same mission, goal, and purpose is being reflected in the stories. So it's important to identify the lifestyle, the values, the that group sentiment, which are being reflected in one particular, like, meet that representational input of one media outlet, or of a newspaper, of any kind of digital outlet. Okay, so the group it is represented, lifestyle it has represented. So the which values have been omitted, that is important. The values, lifestyle which are being omitted, which economic interest is being represented, that is important in this story. Okay, the kind of code and convention, the technique which is used in constructing the story. Okay, and even these technologies which are used to construct the stories time. So what is being selected? So all at the same time we see that most of the time content are misleading content. When content will be misleading? When there is a selection, like an extreme level of selection of the content, and you see the cropping of a photograph, and unnecessarily cropping of a photograph, in order to, you see, in order to highlight some section or some part, and to like, to give a very false impression. Or you see, you take the quote, you only give some part of the code. Filter is like that filtration or whatever you see, the selection is fine, but that is there. But apart from that, you are not using the whole code. Even you omitted the like major chunk of the code. You are using only the that irrelevant that two or three words. So that is called misleading content. So that also that comes under information, like disorder or disinformation. So it's very very important to understand the difference between this information literacy and disinformation in the era of disinformation, because we are living in this era of disinformation, right? So it's very important to understand the types of disinformation, types of misinformations are available. And so it is fine. So how to be information literate and what are the criteria based on which you will evaluate one message? It's important, right? Now you see that there are types of disinformation or content which try to create harm to the audience. Uh, so we can at the same time categorize those content. So one is, as I have told you, first one is parody or satirical content. Satirical content are good for humor. It's also at times funny, but it tend to fool someone, and hence it is also said it's a part of information, disinformation. Okay, or information disorder. So if you see, the information disorder is a kind of conduit where we have that different types of disinformation, or you see that misleading information. Now, let me tell you, satirical or parody is one kind of disinformation, but these are the information, or this is the information will not tend to harm anyone, but it will tend to fool anyone. So, any information which will tend to harm anyone, which will lead to, you see, will lead to disinformation. But when there is a misinformation is basically misleading content. So parody is a misinformation at times. It can be categorized as a misinformation. Now you see, there are misleading content when the sender's intention, in the last class I have discussed about the sender's intention is not to harm, but out of ignorance he is sharing that, or she is sharing that particular content in order to promote someone's interest, or to negate or oppose someone's interest. Okay, so that is basically misleading content, because you do not know the interest of the sender, but you as a person are sharing that content being ignorant. Again, you become a spreader of this rumor and part of this information disorder or disinformation, let me tell you. Okay, so this is basically called misleading content, content which is misleading. Huh. Let me tell you here, it's very very important to understand. And in digital media, you see most of the debate and um, this and most of the study, even this scholastic tradition is concentrated on understanding the rumor and disinformation. And it is also said that rumor is anything that that can create an anxiety, that has an ability to create anxiety and a stressful situation, or a kind of you say that fearful situation, or anything that can even lead you to become so much lighthearted that you tend to tend to disregard the, or even tend not to interpret the seriousness of the situation. So that is what is rumor, unverified information. Okay, and you are not supposed to send the rumor, you are not supposed to even that pull out and disseminate and spread the rumor. Okay, so you see, it's important when you talk about this different types of uh, you say disinformations, or you said that kind of information in information disorder. First is satirical content. Second is this misleading content, when the sender will send the information, wrong information, without knowing that information is wrong and not genuine. but again, that content will definitely mislead the audience and the reader, right? So that is called misleading contents. Then third is you have that is called the false context, as I have already told you, false context. And fourth is false connection. False context is different. Suppose you see that example I have already given you. A photograph taken 7 years back, 8 years back, are used now in a different situation, is a false context, right? So you're not supposed to do that. And there is also a false connection, which is very, very important to understand. Most of the time, that content visual takes are not relevant. So there is a mismatch between the physical artifact and the representational tools that you have used. So the content you have used, photograph you have used. So you try to create a link, but actually it's not linked. So so that is actually a false connection. It happens. So when information is not based on facts, and information are not truthful. Suppose you have collected contents from somewhere else, but photograph is being downloaded from net, but you have reported a local incident, a bus that a bus accident or anything, you see, a motorbike accident, but you could not able to manage a photograph, and photograph you have collected from the net. So that is also a false connection. Okay, so information is not verified. And you had imposter content, as I have already told you in the last time. Also, I have given you example when during this election time, this kind of imposter content is available nowadays. Also, it is quite available. Memes are there. So through memes, there is so much of rumor has been communicated and create a kind of anxiety, and it has created that information disorder, right? It has lead to that disinformation and misinformation. So hence it is important to identify, but at the same time, memes has a role to create humor, make yourself like light-hearted, but you see it's a humor, right? But you look at the meme, okay, okay, good. So I'll also share one example what happens, I'll see, and you will interpret it. There is an example. Suppose one of my very relative, close relative, was sharing this information that and let me put a disclaimer in front of you so that you won't try to relate it with anyone else. Okay, so I'm just giving an example in order to um, help you or aid you to have a better understanding of this uh, uh, idea called disinformation and misinformation. Okay, so what happened? Suppose I have okay, I have given two of my kids that admission into this swimming coach, that swimming coaching. So they are taking this training for swimming nowadays. Okay, now what happens? You are not supposed to relate it to anything else, huh? It might be real story, or it might not be, so you are not supposed to relate. I'm telling you that how humor is usually. So at times it is also seen that in many swimming pool, most of the coach and those trainers tend not to uh, deep down into the pool and to train them. Okay, they from the very pedestal used to instruct the swimmers that you do this, do that at certain level. So at times it is okay. So I do not have any kind of you see uh, ill feelings against anyone. So what happened? So some of the some you see some occasions have um, made me a bit anxious. So that is not a rumor, but somebody has told me that this this one of the coach one day fell down, and he or she could not even swim, and one guardian who was also swimming in the other end of the pool helped to even back that what save his life or her life. And that that is the kind of information. So that created a kind of amusement. I did not share it because, but yeah, I loved a lot. Huh. So you see, that has created lightheartedness, but that is not actually, that may not be right, but at the same time, that is being shared by my close friend or very close relative. So I might also say that it involves that source credibility. Right. Although source credibility, we will always look into the credibility of the source, and credibility of the source is based upon our acquaintance, our the trustworthiness, our relation with the source. Like somebody very close to me, somebody who is reputed one, and somebody who who is very friendly, has made a comment. uh, Hence it is like it is which it is considered as a truthful one, or something which can be shareable, like that way we tend to think, no. But so I am not saying that somebody is spreading the rumor, but I really don't know the veracity of the information, whether that trainer has uh, that fallen down and could not even swim properly, and some parent or that regular swimmer helped him or her to come out. So I really don't know what actually happened. But that was the situation when I don't know, but I loved out. That also gave me a kind of amusement. Okay, so I take that. So it depends on you whether you will share this information, spread this information, and the kind of role. So your role is ignorant, your role is spreader, your role is stifler. So it's very, very important the kind of role. If you are ignorant, but you are spreading it, because rumor spreader will always try to capture those or catch those who are ignorant about the fact, and know that this or he or she will spread this information because he or she has a hopu effect. Okay, so take this. So he or she will spread the information until and unless there is a information decline or decliner, or one who will control this information. It will kept on, spreading. So you see that rumor monger, it is also a kind of habit of most of us. Gossip, rumor are there, no? So it's there, it's inherent in us. So at the same time, it also give us just, it gives us that amusement, right? And because of this amusement, we tend to tend to fall prey of different kind of disinformation and rumor. Now you see that that is one thing. Yeah. And but let me tell you, any information which will create anxiety in you, which will be highly fearful for you, which will which will put you in a very stressful situation, will tend to be rumor only. Hmm. So, but there are something, some seriousness is also there at times. So, ऐसा भी नहीं है कि I'm not telling you to be critical. Be critical, and finding yourself highly fearful, and finding yourself very anxious. So, what to do, what not to do, what will happen, like that kind of situation. Then that means you are susceptible to get the rumor, get into this rumor. So, susceptibility effect is always there. Okay, so very anxious, what to do? Oh, Ram, very fearful. What will happen now? Here, I told her I did not even inform her. Now, to my uh, the whole career will be over, or something, or like another. You make yourself very fearful. Fearful. That fearfulness is a kind of, you see, that is susceptible. Your susceptibility to rumor. Okay, and you see anxiety, that is also kind of always like that comes from the rumor monger. Okay, but when you see that genuine information is always fact or fact based. Suppose uh, now you see I'm saying that today in one context there is a meeting or any kind of gathering. I'm saying that uh, uh, that person, he told me that he will help me out in terms of suppose writing an applications, but later he's step back, he did not even help me out. So what a kind of person, but all the time he made me do these, do that, you know. So I revealed that. Let me tell you, objectively, I'm saying that he did not help me. And if you want me to confront, okay, I can confront that he did not help me or she did not help me. And he made me do this very thing. But in that meeting, if someone has taken that information and saying it, that she had lot of complaints regarding you, she said this and it. So the person who is saying that is a rumor monger, let me tell you. So you are not supposed to do this. You are a journalist. You are supposed to ethically, or a media person, supposed to evaluate each and every information uh, critically. Okay, so she has made a complaint. That she made a complaint. What kind of gathering is that? What kind of group is that? So what extent you can share that information? So if it is a tightening group, or it is a weak ties. So in a weak ties, that kind of information can percolate down, can spread, can disseminate in a weak ties. But in a very tightened group, that kind of information is not supposed to bypass that group boundaries, let me tell you. So in a tightening group, and you see that rumor could also happen inside that community or outside that community. Suppose in a disaster, any kind of disaster, man-made disaster, natural disaster has happened, earthquake or flood, anything happen. Okay, so that rumor could also come up or disseminated inside that community regarding preparedness, how to prepare, what way to prepare, or outside the community. Rumor could happen, or might it might also be some earthquake. Yeah, because of earthquake, you see that that river has died down, like that way, that kind of information, that is a rumor. Or people that is a dug deep into the sand, that kind of information came in. So it's not wrong, there is no veracity of this information. So some informations are also circulated outside, so that is actually that is generated by media, and some of the information are circulated inside. Okay, so those informations are generated by those agent maybe government, PR agent, maybe individual, maybe organization, maybe social group. So when we talk about the agent, so any information, for any information, so as I have already told you, there are three important factor. One is agent, then second is the message, and third is the interpretation, is very very important to understand the veracity of the information, or to make yourself information literate. So first, agent is very very important. Agent who has disseminated that content, so whether he is a government agent, or he is a PR firm, actor from PR firm, anyone from PR firm, or he is a private he's from private organization, an individual, a social group belonging to that ethnicity, that. So we need to find that out. So why he is, because whose value is being represented, we tend to say. But you are not supposed to generalize it. At the same time, we tend to generalize also. We identify all these diversified factors, but tend to generalize also. Suppose we tend to generalize, he has done something wrong to community of one ethnicity. Suppose he has done wrong to one Bengali community, person of Bengali community. I'm giving one example. So it's not like that you will do wrong to people of all the Bengali peoples. So tend to generalize is also kind of rumor. Okay, so we used to generalize things, no. So she tend to do or carry out harm to one group, or not a group, one person belonging to that ethnicity. So she has ill feelings against all the person of that ethnicity. No, wrong. So you have generalized it. Why you have generalized it? Based on what? You have no reason. So when you talk about an information which doesn't have that source credibility, which doesn't have the content credibility, it is tend to be disinformation. So you see that when we evaluate the disinformation, we tend to see the source credibility and credibility of the content. Okay, first, it is also related to our core root and a peripheral root. So our core root, when you get this information, so first and foremost, we will try to read that information, try to find the argument in that information. We try to identify the content and the form of the information, and then we qualify that information. Then we also put a stamp that this information is qualified, it's a good information, verified information, positive, or it's a news or fact-based information, right? So that usually it happens to our core root. This is core root, and we tend to use our peripheral root most of the time. So this is also according to the principle of elaboration, like likelihood model. It's a part of advertising model, like the way message persuade us, because we tend not to have that much of time to evaluate each and every aspect of the message, right? So we tend to use our peripheral route in such a way that we we what we'll do, we will try to find out only the source who has sent the message. If source is source appears to be credible, appears to be trustworthy, then we tend to believe that and that trustworthiness comes from your friendliness and that reputability, or if it is official, then we tend to say that it has come from official source, so definitely that information will be correct. Is it so? No, actually, no. But we tend to believe. And perhaps digital media has actually changed the whole understanding of this information literacy in that way. So, and that's why we said that this is a post truth era. Okay. So, and it is also, it has already, digital technology has also want us to reskill and upskill nowadays. We talk about reskilling and upskilling. So I'll discuss those terms. So it's important, very important to understand the content of the message and this information. Okay. Um, okay. So uh, we have those seven type of information, right? Parody, satirical, misleading content. Then we have that false connection, false context, and we have that imposter content, like impersonating someone's logo, someone's punchline, and making your own. Okay, and also strip line, and making your own, impersonating anyone's logo and all without even having the consent or taking permission, is a kind of imposter like content. Okay, it is there. It is often there. If you were now at this point of time, if you were using this BBC logo, because you will be well versed in Photoshop, and most of you might have used Photoshop and Canva and all. So without even getting the consent, you were using someone's logo, someone's byline even. Huh. So just to make it look authenticate will be kind of imposter content, impersonating someone's self. That is another kind of misinformation. We have malinformation. Malinformation are those information which are degrading information, like information related to bomb making and all. These are malinformation. Okay, so it is different from misinformation at the same time, malinformation, because these information are genuine, but this will tend to harm others, right? So this will be malinformation. Then we also have that messed up information, poorly organized information, and then mostly useless informations are there in you see in digital media environment. Mostly useless information, that is 4M are there, that misinformation, malinformation, messed up information, as well as mostly uh, that useless information. Okay, and we also have uh, that fabricated news. Last time I have already given you one example, that there are some self-proclaimed fantasy news dealers. They used to say that we are the one who sell the fantasy news items. Huh. So they are being contacted by the politicians, even the peer farm during elections. So they will make some news, and they will circulate those news in that way. And also there is another that is another kind of information that is also called misinformation. Misinformation, when you see a genuine information, is also placed in such a way in order to disrepute someone or cause harm to someone. Suppose an editor is sitting on the lap of a businessman, so that might be genuine, but that photograph, you somehow you got to click the photograph, and that happened. Also the same case is being shown, that incident is being shown in that movie, that Chak De India movie also. It is being shown, it is clicked, but you have circulated it with a wrong intention and impute the relationship between the two. Okay, you can defame someone or giving a different text. So that is also a kind of misinformation. That is not that is manipulated, not manipulated information, because you are not ignorant, you know, but you have manipulated it. So when you have manipulated content, fabricated content, imposter content, false context, false connection, these are disinformation. And misleading, massively organized information, and you have mostly abundance, mostly unorganized or useless information. Then false connection, okay, and parody, satirical, these are also information. These are basically misinformation, not disinformation. So you tend to identify these two concepts, the difference between these two concepts. So one is misinformation, one is disinformation. Each and every information cannot be disinformation when that intention of the sender is not to harm the audience or the user. Then it will not be you see, misinformation, disinformation. But if the intention of the audience is to harm the users, will be disinformation. Harm the audience, harm anyone with whom he has some kind of whatever. So he will share it in opposition to him. Some classes are there with him or her, so that tend to be disinformation. Okay.